I've had some, in the last year particularly, some big revelations, which ironically have made me more powerful and less concerned, which is beautiful, and that's part of the evolutionary process. But that's where most people sadly live, force. And when you're in a state of force, you have to be in a state of resistance and tension. Resistance and tension anatomically are really reflections of the dis-ease, the absence of peace in your system, which then eventually will cascade through your physiology and show up as a sickness. If you don't change the underlying root, which is creating the suffering, and you're just dealing with external substances and pills and doctors as a means of trying to manage symptoms, okay, you might add a few years to your life, but you're not actually reconciling anything, which is why we have a sick care and disease management system. With no judgment at all of doctors and nurses. I know they're well-intended people who went out there and they want to make a difference because they care, but they stepped into a system that can't help people. It can keep them alive and it can keep them pain-free, but doctors don't study health. Like the genesis of what it is to become an MD is you study the form, which is called anatomy, you study the function, which is called physiology and biology. You study the dysfunction of that, which is called pathology. And then you study the intervention of that, which is called pharmacology, right? Where did you study health?
Nutrition and yeah.
Diet, lifestyle, mindset.
Yeah.
So it's no fault, like the intention is good. Both personally, I want to raise a family and buy a nice house and have a good income. Great, have at it. Everyone does. And the intention of wanting to be of service, because that's part of our dharma as humans, all there. But you're using a mechanism that actually is the antithesis of what it is to be healthy. And so, but we seem to be stepping into a current era where people are waking up to that, which is cool.
Yes.
And realizing what it is to be truly healthy. And as I say, we're speaking at all these biohacking conferences and where people have got all the toys and the $50,000 cryogenic chamber and, that's not for the average Joe, but like people are doing everything from peptides to red light to saunas to whatever it is, hyperbaric chambers. But I tell people this categorically: you can't access true vitality until you free your mind, period.
I mean, I'd love to end there because that was so beautiful. That was so perfect. But I have one more question that
we're going
pertinent to our community and just the location where we're sitting in and my personal story, which is these fires in LA.
Yeah.
And just like a mass. I would just like to kind of leave my audience, because a lot of us live here in LA.
Yeah.
A lot of us were personally affected. What are your thoughts with someone struggling? They're just going through the grief process of losing everything, not only their material possessions like myself, but a community. Like there was a lot of us that had plans and visions and settled roots down in this community that was like so supportive and in our vibe, and people who had lived there for 46 years.
Yeah, that's okay.
In 50 years and just generational families that lost everything, and like people are really struggling with that ride. And me personally, I've just experienced so much love and support, and I'm okay. Like I am entering a new chapter of my life. It does feel like kind of a, like a ritual of like burning the past,
Yeah.
So I've been able to kind of digest it in a different way. And I'm blessed to have means to start to rebuild things,
Yeah.
And like I said, I just have the most amazing friends and family from all over the world, just like sending me so much love. So there is so much beauty coming from this, but for people that are struggling, and just angry or going through the process, like what are your words of wisdom that might support someone?
It's a big one. I feel, first of all, there's many levels that we look at, right? We can talk philosophically, esoterically about this, like, karma burning and the release of all the things that we thought were important and necessary. And then we've got the emotions of, as you said, anger, devastation, sadness, hopelessness, and the practicalities of like finances and all of these insurance companies that fortuitously just happen to pull out in the nick of time. How about them apples, right? So there's the material level. So I think the first thing for me is, just compassion, empathy, understanding. I think people will say beautiful things, right? Sending prayers and love. And there's a part of us that could say, well, that's great, but that doesn't fucking help me build a new house, right? And that's an appropriate response too. It's nice, I care. And I'm doing what I can in my own means, and like literally, what does it take? Like contributing money to one of my neighbors who lost everything, including their restaurant, just so I'm putting money into a pot that's helping pay their staff who no longer have a job, right? So that's like the actual impact of doing something practical. I would say, it's transformative, right? Like fire is the alchemy of like one form to the next. You take an ice cube, you bring heat, it becomes liquid, eventually becomes steam. So I think there is an alchemy happening here that is more than just Pacific Palisades, right? There's an awakening happening, the phoenix that's rising, that is the shift in consciousness. And so at one level, I quote Mother Teresa, she said, I know God won't give me anything I can't handle. I just wish he wouldn't trust me so much.
So good.
So I would say that whoever was involved here at some level, they're not being given anything that for whatever reasons in the karma of their own existence they can't handle. They might not want to, and that's an appropriate human response. But for some reason it's revelatory. It is helping them to tap into something that is way more precious than drywall and a roof, And so it is the removal of the idea of value being exogenous to recognizing the abundance that is our inherent birthright, and that we build from that, right? And all the human emotions of being angry and desperate and pissed off and blaming and accusatory, all of those are still appropriate, So, but I know for myself, whenever I've had things that I certainly wouldn't want to encounter, my mum dying, my dad going to work, never coming back, dying, I would invite people to get out of the story of loss, because in the world of duality, if they've lost something, then they must also be finding something, whether we call it like inherent fortitude, inherent worth, and I would get into the world of practicalities. Okay, well, that happened. And so I asked myself, can I be with this, right? And the degree to which I can't be with it is the degree to which I perpetuate it. I'm still in the story of what happened versus dealing with what I'm now committed to creating. And that's not an easy journey for anybody, but it is the powerful one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, compassion, love, apologies, personally doing what I can that is a practical difference, but spiritually, esoterically, to recognize that we're unstoppable. And that no matter what we have externally, the things we hold on to, oftentimes they become the very obstacle to realizing the real abundance that we're here to recognize, which is our inherent essence. Which, okay, that sounds all fucking fancy, but it's powerful. And then if you build from there, which is how I've created the life I have, there was a boy in me who thought he wasn't good enough and had the same stories of loss, which no one would begrudge me. My mum and dad is a pretty big thing, dying, especially as an only child. But I really, the transfiguration of those stories into the fact that no, actually that is part of my story. I didn't lose my parents because, to my point earlier, I could argue that I found the most incredible form of unconditional love, particularly through my dad. So was I a victim of his death, or was I the beneficiary of the fact that I even had him in my life to begin with for however short of a period? I had him for 17 years, and I've got friends who've had a father for 70 and they've never told them that they loved him. So it's all perspective again, how we started this conversation and how you want to look at things. That's the real alchemy, is not in the way that you've been impacted by something, but who are you going to be in the face of it, right? Yeah. It doesn't necessarily create character, it reveals the degree to which you already had it.
Thank you for listening to the Heal with Kelly podcast. Be sure to tune in every Thursday for more empowering wisdom and inspiring healing stories. And make sure you hit the follow button on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss that one episode that holds the answer you've been searching for. Oh, and if you found this episode inspiring, please rate, review, and share Heal with Kelly so that we can grow our audience and reach more people. We truly appreciate it. Lots of love.